Is it addition by subtraction, Matt Harmon? They lose Keenan Allen, but I think overall, I think this is going to help the offense because it opens up more targets for Rome Odunze.
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
May be the greatest catch I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think Rome is a guy that's ready for a big second-year leap. He was someone that in his reception perception profile last year, everybody knows I loved him as a prospect. He's one of my favorite prospects I've ever charted. He comes in last year, and the thing I hated right away, and this is what's so weird about the Keenan Allen discussion, because theoretically, if I was the Bears last year, theoretically, I'm like, okay, Rome Odunze, X receiver, boom, set it and forget it. DJ Moore, flanker, move around guy. Let's get him into space. Boom. Set it. Forget it. And then Keenan Allen he's a slot only guy that we use on like layup routes. Well, Keenan Allen was running a bunch of like vertical routes and he was moving all over the formation. And DJ Moore, like the best way I can describe him, I was talking with a noted Bears fan, Robert Mays of The Athletic, about this. Yeah. When there were reports coming out of training camp, that and the preseason, not the preseason games, but some of like the scrimmages and stuff that, DJ Moore is like moving around the formation. He's even lining up at running back. I was like, damn, dude, like, yes, this is exactly the way I've wanted. I literally talked to DJ Moore about this a couple of months ago at the Super Bowl. I was like, why? Like, we need to get you in a role where you're kind of like Deebo Samuel, right? Moving around the formation, not like playing true up the gut running back stuff like Deebo was, but getting you like, we got to get you into space because really good after the Rome, DJ and we all sat down. We all talked about this. Like, this is what needs to happen, right? And, I was like, DJ, why has this not happened since, like, your rookie year in Carolina? He's like, well, coaching staffs, this, that, and the other. But anyways, so I'm like, yes, this would be great to see DJ Moore in this role. And Mays comes back and says, no, actually, I think we should just keep him in, like, the Andre Johnson alignment that he had last year. I'm like, yeah, he kind of had, like, Andre Johnson's alignment taking 76 I know, right? Taking like 76% of his sampled snaps on the line of scrimmage. Like, but then also somehow had like Kadarius Toney's route tree, like screen 10.5% screen routes, a bunch of flat routes, like that was basically, disgusting. Like DJ Moore was lining up like Andre Johnson, but having a route tree like Kadarius Toney. I believe he had like more screen targets and screen catches than any other wide receiver last year. And it was like screens are cool. Screens are great, but these are like the disgusting, this guy's again out on the boundary on the line of scrimmage. The quote from DJ that stands out in my mind from this interview is him saying, it's kind of scary when you get the ball and there's no one out there like blocking for you and you're just out there in space all by yourself. But when you're confident in like the guys ahead of you blocking it up like that's good. So that's what the Bears are doing last year. DJ Moore in the weirdest X receiver role of all time, like Rome Odunze moving around and Keenan Allen like moving around between flanker slot, running a bunch of deep routes that Caleb Williams wasn't hitting. It was just a nightmare in 2024. Fast forward to this year, I think Rome Odunze just being settled at X receiver makes everything make so much more sense, because if I was to say one, and again, I had this conversation with Rome Odunze myself, we both agreed the thing that was the weakest part of his game as a rookie was working against zone coverage. Now, it wasn't terrible. 52nd percentile success rate versus zone, certainly the weakest part of his game, considering he was lining up so much, facing so much zone coverage, because he was kind of this like move around, 41.8% off the line of scrimmage player, slot 34.2%. He's kind of that like flanker-ish big slot receiver. Not good that he was kind of struggling to get his feet wet against zone coverage. That's not that uncommon for some of these rookies, but he was really good against press man. 87th percentile success rate versus press, 72.2% against man coverage. That's really promising, especially for a guy that wins at all three levels. So I think him settling in at that X receiver spot and just locking it down, that allows everything else in the offense to get opened up here.
Two things here. One, the player that you described reminded me greatly of Marquise Lee in USC's Lane Kiffin offense. the Lane Kiffin USC experience, and I know all my Trojan fans will echo this sentiment, but just can we please stop throwing super out wide, bubble screens? I mean, it was just an entire offense built around bubble screens to the out wide
That's
receiver.
gross.
Like, how does that work? How does that make any sense? It didn't make any sense, and that's why USC underachieved under Lane Kiffin. Okay, the second thing I want to bring up here, Rome Odunze. By the way, the profile, it's a great profile to read, man. Very interesting, very illuminating stuff in regards to Rome Odunze on the website, receptionperception.com. Man, there are so many promising numbers in here, though, Matt. I mean, in the intermediate area, this guy was an absolute, beast. He was rock solid. Nearly a 90% success rate on the out route, 85% success rate on the dig route. On the curl, it's 81%, 78% on the slant. We'd like that to be 80, but that's okay. Working with where he's at, that's a good number. These are some really, really good numbers. I want to tie this back into Ben Johnson. We know what Ben Johnson did in Detroit, but let me ask you this. Does Caleb Williams have the same skill set as a Jared Goff? And if not, and we know the answer is no, how does this offense look different? How does the 2025 Chicago Bears offense look different than the 2024 Detroit Lions offense?
It's a great question. And I think that one thing I've wanted to push people away from is sort of copy pasting what happened in Detroit.
Terrible idea.
Onto Chicago, because all these players are very different. Now, I think some of the core concepts and ideas are going to be carried over in terms of that intermediate area, that you talked about there. Like, I actually just finished charting Amon-Ra St. Brown today, so we'll talk about him when we get to the Lions section. But
nice.
So I've just spent a lot of time with this Lions offense. Timed that up well. That's good podcasting right there. But so much intermediate stuff, just clearing space out there. And that was not present in this Bears offense last year. So it's almost like kind of hard to gauge who Williams is as an over the middle and intermediate passer. Obviously the results from a statistical perspective are terrible from a downfield passing perspective, intermediate passing perspective, and particularly working over the middle. But at the same time, it's an offensive line that was terrible in the interior. That is something that they reinvested in this year. So Caleb Williams might be one of those guys that when the pocket gets muddy in front of his face, that's when he gets issues, right? Now that hopefully adding Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, hopefully that solves that problem. And the spacing and like the route concepts, like guys operating in the same area, guys like running into each other in the intermediate area, that was all over the tape last year in the Bears offense. Obviously, Ben Johnson's offense, like the details, the order of operations, like everybody's where they're supposed to be. That really cleans up that area of the field to, I think, give Jared Goff and give Caleb Williams like hopefully wide ass windows to throw into here. That comes back to these guys, Rome and all these receivers needing to be like hyper on it in terms of details. And, again, I talked to Rome Odunze about this. I asked him, like, how has Ben Johnson been as a coach now? Because I talked to him in February, talked to him again just recently. I'm like, how has he been as a coach? He's like, man, he has been hard on us. And he's like, and I love it. I love that because Rome this is why I'm very confident in Rome being the most productive receiver in this room this year, is because he's the most detailed player of this whole bunch.